Good morning, everybody. Tracy here from Redwind Studio. As promised, I am going to show you guys how to do some antiquing with the Phat Paint Company's dark waxes. So there's two that are available. The new one, which is the black wax, which I really love, and I've been waiting for this for a long time. And then the traditional patina, antique patina, which is more of a brown. Now I've gone ahead and I've prepared some pieces already. So one is just a plain piece of pine that I've painted up in Phat Paint Company's Couture Linen, which is one of the Amanda Forrest colors, and I have gone ahead and I've put clear wax on that already and given it a good buff. As well, a couple of wooden candle holders that I picked up at a thrift store, and I've painted those in red barchetta, and I waxed those as well yesterday and gave them a good buff. As you can see, the nice shine on that, and that's from the natural wax. So I'm going to start with the candle holder. I'm just going to move this board out of the way. And with the red, I want to use the black wax. So I usually use a couple of different brushes depending on what I'm going to be waxing. For something with detail like this, this type of brush, which is a traditional wax brush, you certainly can use it, but I prefer just a cheap old chip brush. That way I can get it in specifically into the little nooks and crannies and leave as much wax in there as I want, whereas something like this isn't going to fit in quite as nicely, so I always prefer to use the chip brushes. So I'm just going to dip in. I'm going to use a fair amount on my brush, and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to actually coat this pretty well. I'm going to be pretty generous with the dark wax, the black wax on this one. Sure I get it up and under the rim there. Same as down here. Let's turn it upside down so I get the wax under the rim. There we go. So that's a lot of wax. I'm actually going to put just a little bit more on that part. And then I'm just going to take this, I'm just going to set it aside. I would just want it to set up a little bit before I go wiping it off. I've got a couple of rags here that I'll be using in a minute. Now, the next one I'm going to show you is with the antique patina, which is more of the brown wax. And this is traditionally how on furniture, if you want to antique it, this is how it's typically done. Again, you always want to apply your natural wax first so that you don't wind up with a muddy mess. Give it a good buff, and then you can go ahead and you can apply your dark wax. And I'm going to use the other brush for this. Now, the camera might, I'm going to lift this up so that the table isn't wobbling and the camera's not all over the place. So I just work it in. See how it's turning it all brown? not going to let that set up because I don't want to leave too much of the brown on there. I want it to be fairly subtle. Sorry if I'm wobbling all over the place. So I'm going to go ahead and wipe it off. Now if I liked, can you see that? If I liked the way that looked and that was the darkness that I was looking to achieve, I could let that set up for a minute or two and then I could give it a good buff and get some shine on it. Now, say that's too dark and I want to lighten it up. I put too much of the dark wax on. I could then go into, I have a big bucket of this, I go through a lot of it. I could go into my natural wax, and I didn't grab a brush, actually, just use my rag. I could go into my natural wax. See, I've got a little bit, not too much, just a little bit on the rag, and then lightly go over it. Can you see that? I'm starting to pull it off. Do a little bit more. So even if you have some blotchy spots, maybe you have some dark patches, you want to even it out, you can use this process to even it out a little bit. Can you see that? I don't know how well the camera's picking that up. Now another technique that I do, and I'm going to use the black for this because I prefer using my chip brush for this technique. This one is if I'm going to do a fade. So what I mean is have it dark around the edges and then fade out to light into the middle. So I'm going to apply a fair amount of wax along the edge. But I want it to fade out. So I don't want it to stay dark like that all the way across my piece. See what I'm doing there at the bottom. So I'm just outlining it. So this would be, I did a dresser a while back. I don't know if any of you remember it. It was a beautiful blue, Mykonos, I think is how it's pronounced, is the color, a nice vibrant Greek blue. And I used, I made my own black wax at that time. The Fat Paint Company hadn't come out with theirs yet, and I used a black wax on it, and I did this technique. So I faded it out. The edges of the drawers were dark wax, and I faded it out into the middle towards the handles. And so I've applied quite a bit around the edges, as you can see there. And then what I do is I'll dip into my wax, and then I scrape off on the edge of the jar so that there's just a very small amount on my brush, even though it looks like there's tons. And then I very lightly, I do really lightly feather strokes. And it's very hard to get this really even, but you very lightly feather it on. It a little bit so that you've got that fade happening. And sometimes you'll wind up with a darker spot here and there. And then you can go in with your rag again and lighten it up. Now I would let this sit again for a few minutes, and then I would lightly wipe it and then determine whether or not I've got patches where it's too dark or too light, and then go back in and add a little bit more to it. So I'm just going to set this over for a minute, and I'm going to grab my candlestick that I was working on. There we go. And my rag. This is hard to figure out where to hold it. So I'm just going to start at the top, and I'm going to wipe some of that black away. I'm not going to let my rag go into the nooks and crannies. I'm going to let the wax remain in there. If you've got gobs, you'll want to get in there and get it, because that'll just turn in a hard chunky wax and collect dirt and grime. So just gently go in there, but make sure that you're leaving, can you see that? See how I'm leaving wax in there? Same here. I'm doing this in one direction, on the body of the candle holder, flattest part, I guess. Just going with the grain and down. I've got a nice patina happening. I still want some of that nice red to pop through. I don't want to darken all of it. And then again, around the bottom. And this all comes down to personal preference. You leave on as much as you want. Again, so long as it's not too globby, it'll take forever for it to dry and harden. Typically, waxes take approximately, well, most of your finishes anyways, take about 30 days to completely cure and come to full hardness. You can still use them, just be gentle. There. This is what it looked like. And now it is antiqued and aged, and it just gives it a little bit more character. It helps the details to pop a little bit more. I've got Sandy on here, and Debbie, and Carol. Good morning, ladies. Okay, let's go back to this board. Okay, I'm going to give it a little wipe. Now, I'm not applying very much pressure. gonna try to blend it a little bit more. Sometimes, even for somebody that's done it a whole lot of times, sometimes it doesn't want to cooperate. This is especially a good technique if you've got some detailing around a drawer where you can put your dark wax into that ridge and then blend it out and do a nice fade. So that's what I've got going here. Now I find this is a little too streaky here for my liking. So I have a little tiny bit of wax on my cloth, and I'm just gonna see if I can blend that a little bit more. Just lighten it up a little bit, and into the middle, lighten it up a little bit more. Another trick when you're doing a big piece, I always want to you don't stay close up to your piece like this because you just never get a good view of it. So step back as you're working on it, take a look at the whole piece and then come back in and do your touch-ups. Sometimes if you're too close, you can't see the big picture. Just going to blend this a little bit more. I have too much of a line happening here, so I'm just going to go in again to my natural. Just going to, can you see what I'm doing there? Just blending it out a little bit more, so it's not as obvious of a line. Good morning, Nola. Good morning, Iona. Now, I personally would keep tweaking this a little bit, especially along here. It's too much of a definite line, but this gives you an idea of what I'm talking about doing a fade. And usually when I'm doing a fade, it's over a much larger area, so the top of the dresser, the front of the drawers, so it will be covering a bigger area than this. But it gives you an idea. And then back over to this side again, that is with the antique patina, the brown wax. And that's just, you know, that's a great one for, we use this a lot in the farmhouse clock workshop. So you're covering the entire piece with either the brown or the black wax and really antiquing it. It works really great for rough pieces. I really like it on that. And then you can go in and you can create highlights. You take your white, the natural wax, and lighten up spots and highlight different colors, and yeah, so that's that. And then, oh, somebody's calling me. And then I'll show you this one again. So this is without any dark wax, and then this one is antique. So that's it for this morning. Sounds like somebody at my house is giving me a call, and I have to get ready to open up the store. So I hope you all have a great weekend. If you have any questions at all, feel free to post them, message me, whatever you like. Come into the store, see me, and I can give you some tips on how to do the antiquing. Have a great day, everybody. See you later. Bye.